Alright everyone, Tuesday's video, and this is the week that we win the league if we avoid defeat at Tannadice on Saturday. Apologies for the singing, I'm just in a kind of good mood for a change, and looking ahead to what we all expect to be a bit of a title party on Saturday. So might do that a little bit, but I think mainly also be looking back, a bit more reaction to Sunday's game. Did do the post-match reaction yesterday with Paul, so check that out if you want some direct discussion on the match. In terms of today's video, lots of different quotes and things being said, which I guess is another way of saying quotes from after the game on Sunday. So loads of things we can delve into, as well as some news on Moussa Dembele and kind of Kieran Tierney as well. Let's do it. Came across a bit of an interesting stat yesterday. It was one of those that I just came across in my own mind going through various games. So this weekend, if we win the league, it'll be Brendan Rodgers' fourth league title as Celtic manager. I know he's got more than an assist for another one when he obviously left to go to Leicester, but in terms of actual titles that he's been there for the whole way through, hands on the trophy, etc., this would be his fourth. In terms of the clinchers we've had under Brendan Rodgers, so the game when we've won the league title under him previously, well, let me tell you the games and you might notice a wee pattern here. So 2017, we win the title in the Invincible season, courtesy of a 5-0 win over Hearts at Tynecastle. A year later, we beat our rivals Rangers 5-0 at Celtic Park to clinch the league. And last season, Kilmarnock 0, Celtic 5, as we won 3 in a row. So when Brendan Rodgers' Celtic teams go to win the league, we win 5-0. 5-0 this weekend, anyone? Yeah, we'll just kick off with the manager actually and his assessment of Sunday's victory over St Johnstone at Hampden. Brendan Rodgers very happy with the performance. He praised the team's humility, which is basically his way of saying like you turn up with the right attitude and appetite to go and beat these teams. Because playing against Celtic is like the biggest game of the season for each of these teams. We are the team to beat, and I think these opposition teams always put that extra bit of effort in. And as we've found out in recent weeks, if your attitude isn't quite there, you can come unstuck. But I think over the past couple of matches, it has been. So Brendan Rodgers very happy about that. Lots of praise for Callum McGregor in particular. Says he's a special player and the coach on the pitch for the team, which I think Ange Postecoglou may have said a similar thing about McGregor. It's not really a surprise. He spoke about, especially when Celtic come up against teams who play man-to-man like St Johnstone were on Sunday, that it can be difficult for the team, but it also allows guys like Callum McGregor to kind of take the initiative a bit more and maybe move forward a little bit and be freed up to go forward. And I think, to be honest, we saw that for the opening goal on Sunday. And yeah, it felt quite a similar or typical Callum McGregor goal at Hampden, and he scored a lot of big opening goals at Hampden Park. For a guy who doesn't necessarily score a barrel load of goals, obviously I think he's got 10 now this season, which is the third time he's managed double figures in a season for Celtic, but as much as he maybe generally doesn't tend to do that in your normal matches, maybe other than this season and a couple of others, as I've just said, Hampden Park is a place where Callum McGregor really does stand up and give his big moments. And you can think back to Brendan Rodgers' first spell at the club, and McGregor scores an opening goal in a Scottish Cup final against Motherwell. He scored an opening goal in a semi-final against Rangers, may even have been the same season. And there's a couple other ones in their important goals at Hampden. And obviously again on Sunday kind of gives us that moment of brilliance that just opens up the game. So I thought that was really important. Brendan Rodgers also asked about Adam Ida and Liam Scales. Said he was pleased for Ida, who he reckons can be scoring more goals like the one he scored from Hatate's cross in the first half. There was one at the start of the second half, wasn't it? I can't remember if it was James Forrest or someone else who put it across, but Ida was nearly there but just couldn't quite get onto it, and if he had, he would have scored. So I think Brendan Rodgers, while he was pleased with Ida, wants to see him getting into more areas like that to score goals. Pleased with Liam Scales as well. Scales obviously had a big part in the whatever goal that was. Was that the Ida goal? Yeah, it was, when he passed it to Hatate. Third goal. And I saw some quotes from Liam Scales after the game saying that there'd actually been a moment where he should have passed to Hatate just prior to that, like a few seconds before. And I don't think Hatate was too pleased, but they went again and Scales got the ball and slipped it in for Hatate. And it was a brilliant goal. By the way, I should just say, the Scottish Cup channel on YouTube have actually put up the whole match from Sunday, so free of charge. And they've called it a tactical cam. So it basically is just the same normal feed you get, but they've got like a wee kind of mini pitch at the bottom of the screen like you would get on FIFA back in the day, where you can see all the players' positions, and they've also got like some names above players' heads when they've got the ball, etc., and a few other cool things like shot speeds and stuff like that. So I'm definitely going to rewatch the game on Sunday using all of that stuff. Pretty cool there, but it gives you a good kind of indication on some other things. On Brendan Rodgers' brilliant record at Hampden, it's now 14 wins from 14 at the National Stadium, which is quite incredible. He says, "I think I've always tried to approach these like it's my very first time. I never get tired of it. There was nobody more motivated to win than me, to keep the club succeeding, demanding more from the players and our staff, and that's why we have success. Nobody goes through the motions here at Celtic. We never get too carried away when we win. We have to keep our humility because we know we have to work even harder. Our ambition is there to win and win for this great club." Moving on to what some of the players had to say, we'll just go through these relatively quickly. Liam Scales speaking after the game, saying it probably was true that we needed a bit of a wake-up call, and I think we have had it. Now that echoes something that Alistair Johnstone said last week, I think, was after the Kilmarnock game, and he said that perhaps that St Johnstone game had been a bit of a wake-up call for the team. And to be honest, when you look at the last couple of performances, I think it's clear Celtic have gone up a level in those matches. I don't think St Johnstone and Kilmarnock have been particularly good in either of the matches, but like we have scored 4 goals in each of the first halves of the last 2 games, and that's a clear improvement in what we saw in the weeks leading up to the game. So I don't know. Some of us would say there's been quite a few wake-up calls for the team in 2025. Maybe it just took until the low of that performance and result at McDermott Park against the bottom team in the Scottish Premiership for the team really to just be able to reset and go again. And we may look back on that game in Perth as kind of being a necessary evil in terms of getting us back to our best and hopefully winning a treble. We're obviously pretty close to winning the treble now. Yeah, just going back to the relentless hunger for trophies at Celtic that Brendan Rodgers touched on. Callum McGregor talking after the game about the manager, saying, "We had a chat before he came back, and that's what we were talking about. Trying to win as many trophies as we can, be as dominant as we can, keep pushing the club. It's addictive. If you ask any football player, success is addictive. It becomes a habit, and you just keep wanting more and more and more." That's what we're trying to instill in the team, that when we get to these moments, they become normal. You have to win, you have to play well. So as much as we can normalise that and keep being successful, then hopefully that will keep the group in a good place. Yeah, the team just have so much assurance in these big games at Hampden these days. And I guess a fair bit of that comes from the fact that we play so many games there. Like, I'm sure if you looked at the numbers of each, big team in Scotland and how many matches have played at Hampden over the past decade, I'm guessing our number would be much higher than any other team, because virtually every season we play 4 games at Hampden. And like, when you look at it, not just having played so many games there, and I guess it becomes less of a daunting prospect when you've got like familiarity and the games at Hampden. But even more than that, when you look at like not just guys like Callum McGregor and James Forrest, but also people who maybe haven't necessarily been at the club for all of our success over the past decade, but guys like Cameron Carter-Vickers and Rayo Hatate, Daizen Maeda, like these guys have only ever tasted, I think, 1 defeat at Hampden. I'm pretty sure Celtic have only lost 1 game at Hampden since Brendan Rodgers came to the club first time round, and that's 9 years ago. It was the semi-final against Rangers Scottish Cup in 2022, and even that went to extra time. Like, that's the only time the players have tasted defeat at Hampden, and then you look at all the different big games that they've won there, and that experience must help you as well. And yeah, I just think we look so assured when we go to the National Stadium, and if things do go wrong in matches or things get really tight, you just back us to be able to do it. I don't think it's a coincidence that when things have got really tight at Hampden in recent times, most notably for the couple of penalty shootouts that we've had in the past year, that we've even come through both of them, and people call penalty shootouts lotteries. I've never really agreed with that. It's about keeping your composure, and I think this Celtic team just has so much composure at Hampden. So feeling good about the final, but we can get on and talk about that at a later date. Also, some interesting quotes from Arne Engels that you may have seen in the media today. Now, he's been speaking a bit about life in Scotland, and not just in a football context, but also living in the country. And I think he's really enjoying it, and he's enjoying the pressure of playing for Celtic. And he says that his parents are loving Celtic in Scotland too. Don't know if that means that they're living in Scotland or whether they just visit from time to time. He was asked about his hefty £11 million price tag, the record fee that we paid to Augsburg for him last summer, and people obviously keep speaking about that. He said he doesn't care about that at all. I'm still young, I still need to learn. Everybody has something to say, and of course I'm not reading it, but sometimes you hear it. My parents are telling me, they are saying this or that, but it is up to me to just perform, enjoy my game and enjoy life. He's was also saying that one thing that he's had to adapt to at Celtic this season has been the variation of matches that you play. So I guess as fans we kind of take it for granted because we're used to it, but going from the Champions League, the high of Champions League football at Celtic Park, or even away from home at one of these famous grounds like Dortmund's Signal Iduna Park this season, and playing in a match with all that goes with that. And then a few days after Dortmund, we went to Ross County, didn't we? And that's the perfect encapsulation of how kind of difficult the adjustments are at a club like Celtic. What other team really, maybe there's a couple in world football, but there's not many clubs you could play for where you go from Signal Iduna Park on the Tuesday night to Dingwall just a few days later. And Arne Engels was speaking about that and saying that has taken a bit of adjustment. But I think he also enjoys being the favourite and the bigger or better team in domestic matches, because that's something that he didn't really experience at all at Augsburg. So interesting insights from Arne Engels. And I think, just to conclude on what these Celtic players are saying generally, I think it's fair to say things in the camp are a lot better, and people are feeling a lot better than they were a couple of weeks ago after St Johnstone. I think the reaction has been good, and the team, the support, can now kind of see the finishing line for this season with 6 games to go. There should be a really good buzz at Lennoxtown this week ahead of Dundee United on Saturday, and hopefully just a real opportunity for the team to go and win the league in style. Right, away from what you would call current Celtic stuff, John McGinn has been speaking about Kieran Tierney's return to Celtic. Not totally sure why, if I'm honest. I thought he'd be more focused on Aston Villa matters, but maybe he was just asked the question because he knows Tierney and clearly has a lot of love for Celtic. He's made no secret of the fact he was and is a Celtic fan. He told the Sunday Post that he's really pleased for Tierney, who he called an unbelievable footballer. He says Celtic is his club, and I would imagine he's really excited about going back and playing again under Brendan Rodgers. I've no doubt Kieran will add extra quality to the squad, and his experience will be invaluable as they push towards remaining the dominant team in the country. It's also about progress in Europe, and Kieran will want to help the club into the Champions League. And all I'm thinking is, will John McGinn ever play for Celtic? What do you reckon? Because you've got Kieran Tierney, and he's obviously returning, but sooner in his career than all of us would have imagined. But I think even when he left the club in 2019, we all hoped that the day would come one day when he'd return to us. You've got Andy Robertson, who again is a Celtic fan, and I don't know if the Kieran Tierney stuff potentially means he wouldn't return, or sorry, not return. He did play for as a young player. He never played for the first team. Maybe time slightly running out on Robertson. But I think a lot of people would like to see John McGinn at Celtic one day. Contracted at Villa for another couple of years after this season. He'll be 31, a few months away from turning 32 at the end of that contract. So maybe not at that stage, maybe a few years after that you see John McGinn at Celtic. Maybe Moussa Dembele one day as well. I don't know if you would be a fan of that either. An interesting story about him yesterday. He's still out in Saudi Arabia playing for Al Ettifaq, I think same team as Jack Hendry as well. Although he did rupture his Achilles tendon back in February and is likely to miss, I think, virtually all of 2025 as a result. Anyway, he's gone into football ownership. In fact, that's not strictly true because there's not technically a new story, this. And that he's actually been president of AS Manza, who are a Mali-based club since 2019. This is due to Triple M, his investment fund, who own the Malian club. And they've now taken over FK Manija, a second-tier club in Lithuania. Now, Mansa posted on Instagram on Monday saying, "Congratulations to our president, Moussa Dembele, who now also becomes the owner of Lithuanian club FK Manija. We hope this adventure will be fruitful. Good luck, President." So Moussa Dembele, yeah, when you look at him as well, he kind of looks like a president or some sort of big figure at a club. So it's interesting he's got this stuff going on while he's still trying to make a go of it. He's only 28 as well, so he's got a lot of years left in him, assuming he can get over his kind of injury troubles. It's been an interesting career for Moussa Dembele. Still, for me, one of the best strikers I've ever seen at Celtic. Arguably the highest level, like on his day, since the great man, Henrik Larsson back in 2004 or whenever Henrik Larsson left. Like Moussa Dembele at Champions League level was unbelievable. I know he then left and did pretty well at Lyon, scored some big goals. He won the league with Atletico Madrid. People forget he played with them, didn't actually feature too much, but not gone massively well for him in Saudi. I'm sure his bank balance is doing all right, but as we know with Jota, that isn't everything. So interesting to see him going into this kind of stuff. And a future Celtic owner, chief executive, if Peter Lawwell or Dermot Desmond ever decide to call it a day, he'd certainly be an interesting appointment. We'd have an interesting Twitter feed, I think. Plenty of mentions of Rangers going by Moussa Dembele's feed. But good luck to him there, and I'm sure Celtic fans will be keeping an eye on his career as a president. That's pretty much us for today. In fact, that's a lie, because that is all we've got today. I think just things going nicely, and we'll gradually meander through the week as we get ready for Saturday. And a title party at Tannadice. Very much looking forward to that. We'll just gradually get the chat going. But enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I'll chat to you tomorrow.